We are delighted to have our program on Mexico tonight, and really honored to have 4 guests with us tonight representing the government of Mexico. Our speaker is Ambassador Reyna Torres Mendivil, and I'll do her bio in just a second. But I'd also like to welcome Consul Gabriel Mendoza Lopez, who is the Consul for Economic Affairs. Can you wave your hand? There we go. And Guillermo Alfaro Nunez from the political section. And Tanya Andrade, who helped to make this event happen. Welcome. Mexico has been in the news lately. It's a close friend, a neighbor, an ally, and there's just lots going on. So we're just thrilled tonight that we have a real expert, Ambassador Reyna Torres Mendivil, here to talk with us. She took office as the Consul General of Mexico in Chicago on July of 2019. During her diplomatic career, she's held a number of positions in the Mexican Ministry of Foreign Affairs, including General Director for Latin America and the Caribbean, Deputy General Director for International Policy on Human Rights, and she served as Deputy Chief of Staff to the Secretary of Foreign Relations. She's also had postings in the Czech Republic and as a political liaison in the Embassy of Mexico in Washington, D.C. Before assuming her current position, Ambassador Torres Mendivil served as Consul General in San Antonio, Texas. She has lots of other accomplishments, but what we really want tonight is to listen to her talk. I do have to mention, though, that she did a resident fellowship at Harvard University on International Affairs and participated in the Hemispheric Security Program at the Inter-American Defense College in Washington, D.C. She holds master's degrees in international relations from the London School of Economics and lots of other credentials. But in the interest of time, and to have as much time with them as possible, please join me in welcoming Ambassador to the podium.
So, good evening, everyone. Buenas noches a todas y todos. Thank you so much, Kathy, for also making this possible. I'm delighted to be here. I also appreciate very much the leadership of the World Affairs Council of Central Illinois, so thank you. And I just want to say something about the venue. This is fantastic. I've never been here to this place. The view was amazing. The food was amazing. So this is starting to be a delightful evening. Thank you so much to all of you. And I'm happy to talk about the relations between Mexico and the U.S. and what the consulate actually does. I don't know how many of you are familiar with, what a consulate does and what embassies do and all that, but basically we represent, I have experts here, another fellow diplomat. She can give, a lecture on all this. But basically the difference is that we focus in the local, right? As opposed to what happens to our embassy in Washington, D.C. But you will see how everything is completely different. When you talk about other countries that have representation in Chicago, you may have seen many consuls and many other, colleagues of mine for other countries, perhaps coming to Springfield. But the situation with Mexico is completely different, and I'm going to tell you why. This is the consulate, so whenever you are in Chicago and you pass by Ashland Avenue, that's us. We don't have that enormous flag all the time, but, we like to put it there for different reasons during, Mexican festivities, for the Chicago Marathon, and for other reasons. We had that several months last year. We wanted to make a statement, so we want people that, be able to recognize where we are and to feel safe when they are at the consulate. So, what is at play? Why we have the consulate in Chicago? Why are we so big? Why, Mexico matters for the United States? You will see here, I'm not gonna go through everything, but the relationship between our two countries is very intense. And not many people know all the different little things that touch your life on a daily basis that have to do with Mexico. We share a very long border. 2,000-mile border. That's actually quite unusual between two countries with a lot of challenges, asymmetries, but also with incredible good things and positive things that cross that border on a daily basis. And I'm talking about goods and services and things, people that come back and forth, many people from the US going to Mexico to get affordable medication, and the other way around, many people coming to the US, because they like to shop at Walmart. So who knows? The intensity is right there. And do not get fooled by what you read in the news. Many good things cross our border on a daily basis. It's one of the most dynamic borders in the world. So you see, in terms of demography, there are people, over 35 million people of Mexican origin with Mexican roots here in the U.S. That happened here before, when Texas was still Mexico, that stay here, families that stay there. So all the people, feel that they have Mexican roots, and they can say, as one in every out of every 5 Chicagoans will identify with Mexican roots. So we've been together forever, right? It's not only the geography, but the exchanges and how the people come back and forth between the two countries. Out of those, many people think Mexicans are immediately identified with undocumented people or irregular people. That's not right. More than 80% of the people that identify themselves with Mexican roots are with a regular immigration situation. It's just a little less than 5 million that are undocumented. So that's something else that is out there in the news. Like, every Mexican is undocumented. We all, if you have perhaps, the traits that I have, you must be undocumented because you're Mexican. That's not true. You know that. I mean, this is a very smart group and you are interested in international issues, but I like to repeat that. The other thing is that Mexico is also a very popular destination for Americans. There are very large communities in Jalisco that you go there, and even in my neighborhood in Mexico City, for those of you that you have traveled to Mexico City, and you go to do grocery shopping in La Condesa or the Roma neighborhood, I get disoriented because sometimes I start listening English and what's going on here. Many people have chosen Mexico to go for work, for fun, to spend several months in Mexico. So that's also something really interesting that is happening right now. This is the part, I have the expert here, the Council for Economic Affairs, but you can see how intense our relationship is. But what I wanted to take from this slide is that we are the main trading partner for the US. You read a lot about China and what's happening with China and the tariffs and all that, but there's no question about this. For several years already, Mexico has been the main trading partner of the US. We have gained a lot since NAFTA was signed. We have evolved in a very positive manner, and we still are fundamental for the economy and the well-being of many families here. You see how many jobs depend on trade with Mexico? Just in the state of Illinois, 200,000 jobs depend on trade with Mexico. We buy a lot of your corn and soy. We sell a lot of things, including beer, for those of you that like beer. So we sell a lot of things to the US. It's to Illinois. So it's a very positive relationship, the one that we have in terms of trade. And our economies are pretty much integrated. So when we discuss tariffs and what's going to happen and how the new trade agreement is going to look like, and if we're going to be separated from Canada and we were going to have bilateral agreements, I don't know yet. But what I know for sure is that if we damage that relationship, it's not the governments or politicians or negotiators who are going to feel the consequence of that. It's the general public back in Mexico and here in the US. So how do we deal with all these complexities, all these things that put us together and that make this relationship so dynamic, so intense? We have the largest consular network that any other country has in another country. So Mexico has 53 consulates in the US, and we have developed something, and Kathy, we were talking about this, like a new paradigm in diplomacy, which is consular diplomacy. So we need to have, we saw that we needed to have really strong representations at a local level because things were so intense that we needed to be able to speak to the general public like you here today, and take care of our diaspora. So to do that, we created this paradigm, the consular diplomacy. And what we do, two main objectives, of course, to advance the interest of Mexico, like any other country doing diplomacy, and to protect our diaspora and our citizens and provide services to them. So those are the two main fields, and you can see all the implications that have. So this part is, very common. So we engage in good and productive and constructive channels of communication with local authorities. So we are mandated to have an open dialogue with all authorities where we are posted or located. But at the same time, what is really strange for many people is that other box over there. So we provide a lot of services to our diaspora, but those services are very sophisticated. It's not only passports and consular IDs and the traditional visas for foreigners, all those traditional services. We have an entire area that does protection. And in times that the months that we lived last year, where it was very much necessary to have attorneys on hand, to channel requests from our community, or to give workshops regarding the rights of the persons, many other things, we have a very strong protection operation. But also, we decided that we wanted to engage with our diaspora, not only because we wanted to promote our culture, we want the second or third generation kids not to forget what Mexico is, or, enjoy the music or the food like you today here tonight, but we also wanted to empower our community. But, make no mistake, it's not empowering them for a particular political purpose. It's empowering them to be able to be bilingual, bicultural, binational, be recognized, be able to raise their voices by themselves, to be part of the communities where they reside. And for that, we, for example, the consulate has English classes at the consulate. So people that feel comfortable go to the consulate and learn to speak English in our premises, or get prepared for a GED. Or, we distribute textbooks to our families, so the parents that maybe perhaps recent arrivals from Mexico are able to engage with the kids in their own language, so the kids can be successful in the school system here in the U.S. So that transition, we help them in that transition. We do a lot of things, but we talk about that. And the other one, for example, is financial literacy. We want them, I don't have the figure right now, I don't remember it, but our community pays taxes, right? Not many people know that. They pay their taxes, whether they use a fake ID or not when they are documented, but they are very disciplined in that. And let me tell you how we know that. Because during the tax season, you get a lot of people going to the consulate to get consular IDs precisely because they need those to get the IT number and pay their taxes. So we also have that peak during those months every year. So we empower our community through those different areas. Health is the other one. So that's consular diplomacy. So this is the Mexican consulate network in the US. For obvious reasons, we have a lot of consulates in California and Texas, not only because a lot of people of Mexican origin live there, but as I said, the intensity of the exchanges. You can imagine how much we have to deal with Texas. Texas is our main trading partner in the U.S., followed by California, Michigan because of the automotive sector, and then Illinois. Illinois is the fourth. So this is the landscape. Chicago is like the anchor consulate for the Midwest. We have smaller consulates with fantastic and very active, most of them women, I have to say, consuls heading those offices. So this is it. This is our jurisdiction, the entire state of Illinois and the northern part of Indiana. You may be able to speak with other colleagues from other countries, and they cover like 10 states or 12 states, It's very complicated because they have to travel a lot, but the intensity of what we do is such that we could not be able to absorb more than that. We're talking about 3 million persons. So that's huge, that's a lot. And 3 million persons, not only people born in Mexico, but, the sons and daughters of Mexican people that require also our services. Is not exactly what was reflected in the census, in the last census, but still, that those figures are not accurate because not many people were willing. You remember that season, the time, thank you, the census, when many people was scared to be part of it, for different reasons. So this is very simple. I won't say much, but this is how we divide the work that we do. The different sections that I more or less explained already. And just to give you a snapshot of the kind of things that we do, this is the results of what we did last year. So it's a lot, when you see it, and it's very diverse. And it has to do with, not only promoting the culture and trade and services and all that. It's very intense. So as I said, and I usually, when I speak in our diplomatic academy in Mexico City, I keep telling the new diplomats, the young diplomats, don't think that, or what will you think that will have a more intense or tougher job? Our press attaché, perhaps in Romania, or the press attaché in Chicago. Of course, this is it. We're 150 persons in the consulate. It's a huge consulate. And as you will see later on, is the consulate that issues the largest amount of documents in the world. So it's not LA. LA is surrounded by very strong consulates. Also New York, This is the one that issues the largest amount of documents. You will understand the meaning of that, right? It's huge. And you will see right there some figures. We have increased our services. We keep increasing our services every year. You will see that in this slide. But the one that I put in red, that is something that is some sort of radiography or picture, photograph of what we've been through in the last year. The demand for civil register dual nationality increased exponentially. I mean, it's huge. We had a team providing that service of 6 people. Now we have doubled it because it become the most demanded service from us. So what does that mean? What could be the reason? Of course, many people that may feel fear of being deported may want to have their kids register as Mexicans for, just in case. So we're able to go back to Mexico and process the request to enroll them in school or whatever. But many Mexican Americans that are American citizens, adults, say, yeah, you know what? I want a plan B. I want to be able to say that, if I don't like something here, I may be able to go to Mexico, perhaps go back to the community where my parents came from. So this is, as I said, a snapshot of the area of documentation. This is the protection department. So you can see how complex and sophisticated is the operation that we have here. Of course, we're not allowed to litigate in the US, but we partner with many organizations, many attorneys that we actually paid and put the financial resources for them to represent members of our diaspora. We talk about some cases that we saw that were very emblematic in the last months of people that was detained or that was killed as part of what we lived through in the last months. So we provide them with legal representation and we help the families to navigate that. Whether they want to send the remains of a deceased one all the way to I've been a victim of a crime or I'm suffering domestic violence, what do I do? So we cover all those areas. We have many programs. Won't stop here, but just give you a general idea of the kind of operation that we have. We do a lot of information sessions, like information fairs. We go to schools, we go to community centers, we go to churches, and we spread the word. We inform them what we do, how can we help, and all that. This is the community affairs area. And as you can see, we do a lot of things. And when I talk briefly about the specifics of the different things that we do there, we engage with a lot of members of our community from different points of view and different activities. I like that image of the map of Mexico and the US with all those lines there. Let me explain to you what that was. We had the Dreamers Forum last year. So we invited the Dreamers that attend. They came from all over the US. And they work with the local artists and say, well, we're going to visualize your path in the US. where your family came from in Mexico and how they came to the US. And many of them draw those lines. And, my family stopped in Texas and then we went to Florida and I ended up here in Chicago. So those are the paths. So that's pretty much a picture of what a bilateral relationship is. That says a lot about many things. This is the economic and tourism promotion, just to get deeper a little bit of what I talked about a few minutes ago. But what I want you to take away from this is that we are engaging in a very complex dialogue right now, because we're in the process of reviewing the USMCA. And there are different forces pulling one way or the other, right? The politics, the different narratives, so the certain negative things, what's happening with tariffs with other countries, China, many things are in play. What I find positive about all this is that we have not canceled the channels of communication, and our Ministry for Economy comes very regularly to Washington, D.C., and has conversations with authorities, with his counterparts here in the US. So we continue talking. I don't know if we are going to end up with two different agreements, Canada and US and Mexico and the US. I think that would be a shame. But the good news is, like, we continue talking and we see the positive out of all this. Just a few days ago, we received a delegation of over 100 businessmen and businesswomen from Canada. So I guess, we see what we could be losing if we eliminate or if we cancel the USMCA. So one of the fun things that we do is that we promote Mexico in general. We don't want the narrative that depicts Mexicans or Mexico only in negative terms. We hate that narrative because it's not accurate. We're quite aware that we have many, many challenges, that we have to work, in many things. But most of the issues that we talk about when we talk about the bilateral relationship cannot be solved unilaterally. If you talk about drugs, if you talk about the trafficking of guns at the border with good truck, if you talk about whatever, the positive, the difficult, the bad, and the ugly. So none of those issues can be resolved unilaterally. They need to be worked through dialogue, and actually many of them, like immigration, require a regional dialogue, right? So in order to put in the imagination of the general public a concept of Mexico that is more accurate, that responds to the reality of the bilateral relationship and to the reality of what's going on in Mexico, we created something 4 years ago, something called Mexico Week. So when you go to Michigan Avenue and you see those wings that are in Plaza de las Americas, Wings of Mexico, those are by a Mexican sculptor called Jorge Marin. He's from Michoacan. And you can see those same wings in the main capitals of the world. And that will remind you, in this city, I did that as a mean to pay homage to the state and the city as sanctuary cities and sanctuary state, where, our community has thrived here if they have, put the intention into it. And I think it's a beautiful way into paying back to Chicago and the state of Illinois for, having this diverse, rich community. It's a symbol of many, many things. So we do this every year around the Cinco de Mayo, which I'm pretty sure that is not our national holiday. Our national main civic celebration, is something else. It's the Battle of Puebla. I'm pretty sure that you've heard that. It has to do more with the French people than with the US. But for some reason, in this country, you like to celebrate Mexico in the Cinco de Mayo. And since for us it's always good to have many celebrations and many parties, we're all up for that. So we celebrate in September our independence on September 15, but we also celebrate Cinco de Mayo. And we love that everybody wants to have tacos and tequila and Mexican food those days. So mezcal now, that is very much in fashion. So we do the Week of Mexico in Chicago. And we do gastronomic events. We do those Monumental Fridas in Plaza de las Americas. We always do something fun. So we're planning right now, actually, what's going to happen for the Cinco de Mayo. I will send you the information if you stop by in Chicago. Please go there and be part of this. We do a huge festival in Navy Pier. with the market initiative del Mercadito, and we have handcrafts from Mexico with people from the communities in different parts of Mexico go there to sell their beautiful pieces of artesanías and art crafts, and that's really fantastic. So we will keep you posted for this event. And let me tell you something about that and the promotion of Mexican culture. It has to do not only with the narrative, so people will learn more about Mexico, will learn what Mexico is about with more accuracy, but the more that people that have nothing to do with Mexico enjoy Mexican food, Mexican music, Mexican people, they're less likely they are going to discriminate or commit a hate crime against people of Mexican origin. And that's it. And it's the other way around, Stop demonizing people, stop saying, who's a criminal and who's not. We're only neighbors, we're people, and we love parties, and we love color, and we love food. And I know that many of you, like you did tonight, enjoy a good Mexican meal. So that's it. I mean, there are much more things that connect us. And so for me and for the team at the consulate, to promote Mexican culture is a way also in which we can protect our community. So same thing with cultural affairs. We celebrate the Day of the Dead. We celebrate, we have beautiful initiatives like the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago. On Epiphany Day, in January 6th, El Día de los Reyes, for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, we take a group of kids, not necessarily Mexicans, that are in shelters for unaccompanied minors, unaccompanied migrant minors, some of them refugee applicants. And we celebrate with them, and we talk about the culture, and we talk how we celebrate the Day de los Reyes Magos, the Wise Kings, in Epiphany and all that, and it's beautiful. And we also participate in Expo Chicago. We usually bring some curators of very renowned or well-known museums in Mexico, and Lit and Luz was also a literary festival, so the film festival, the International Film Festival, so you can also go to Chicago and enjoy one of those films. This is a little bit about what I talked at the beginning. In order for us to, do you remember that image that I put there? To connect all that through the umbrella or under the umbrella of the consular diplomacy, we need to have a good relationship with local authorities for us to be able to engage and protect our community. So I need to have a good relationship with the governor and his team to talk about what's going on, how can we work together with the mayor, with the General Assembly, the members of the General Assembly. So for us, it's very important to have those connections. And not only that, all things related to our diaspora, but also all things related to trade and even politics and security and all that. So we engage in different manners with local authorities. Governor Pritzker was in Mexico City last year. So many good things have follow up after that, new businesses, new connections. So that's also a very, very exciting part of our job. And almost finishing. Nowadays, you cannot have any initiative that is successful without social media. I know I'm not familiar with the TikTok and many Instagram. I'm not, all the time engaged with that, but I know that younger generations are. So we need to pass our message to create a positive communication with our diaspora. Many members of our diaspora communicate with us through Facebook. So we do that. We informed a lot through social media. And what is really interesting is that we have really interesting initiatives that are very successful. The last one that actually Gabriel here was in charge of is to how do we publicize our businesses, the businesses in our community? How do we create some buzz, around Chicago for them to recover from what they went through in the last months? You may go to La Villita or Pisa and it was deserted. So all those businesses suffered a lot in those months. So we create this initiative for those that are familiar with Mexico. It's Pásale, like, come join us, go to the restaurants, and that has been really, really successful. In case you want more information, for people maybe wanting to engage with the consulate, this is the general numbers that you can connect us with us through. And that's it, talking about social media. So I'm going to stop here, Kathy, so I'll be happy to answer any question.
talk a little bit, please, about how the government of Mexico works with the U.S. to counter narcotics trafficking, and how you are handling
Yeah.
the detainees and the returning detainees on migration?
Okay, let's start with the easy one. That is the one related to drug trafficking. Um, it's always been an issue, like forever. I remember when I worked in our embassy in Washington D.C., and that was decades ago. That was the issue, and it still continues. And we can do the finger pointing, if there is not users of drugs, there wouldn't be any traffic, and go the back and forth. That's not an answer, right? And that's something that cannot be resolved only by blaming the consumer or blaming the people that sell those drugs. We're talking about criminals, and nobody want them to succeed. They are damaging people not only here in the U.S. but also in Mexico. Our youth is also exposed to this. And there are many things, not only, those cartels selling drugs to the US, that's horrible and that should stop, but also the people trafficking guns to Mexico. Do you know that over 70% of all homicides in Mexico, confiscated arms in those crimes come from the US? All the bulk cash, the money laundering. People from the two countries are engaged in those, and there is no way we're going to resolve this just seeing this through, one side. Of course, it's a legal issue, but also it's a health issue. It's a health crisis. And we need to address this in Mexico and here also through that perspective. Otherwise, we're putting like band-aids to the problem. We've been through times in which we've had a really positive conversation about this with the US government on a federal level. There were times in which, the dialogue is closed. It's tough when you have your counterpart seeing just one aspect of that issue. We've had some success, in trying to pass the sensitivity regarding the guns that are trafficked to the south of the border. So we're hoping to continue on that and see, if we can have better results. And there's something else. It's like the elephant in the room. Corruption. These illegalities corrupt everybody on this side and on the Mexican side. And, where the operation is big, they corrupt in a big manner, And that happens, from local context here in the US all the way to, higher levels in Mexico. So we both need to work together to resolve that. And the other one, I said it was very tough because we want to provide full services to our community that is returning to the migrants in return, but it's very complex. Not many people go as a consequence of deportation. We have those figures mapped. We have welcoming centers for them. The federal government has put together several programs to help them when they arrive in Mexico. And also the state governments have put together some programs, whether they will offer them jobs, or loans to start small businesses. But I say it's complex because our family units here in the US are not homogeneous. It's not like, the entire family is undocumented. You have family units where the grandparents may be undocumented and perhaps one spouse is a resident and the other one is not. And then you have DACA kids and you have citizen kids, right? So how do you handle that when you go back to Mexico? You may have one of the parents being deported to Mexico, but what about the rest? They may choose to voluntarily be repatriated to Mexico, and we cannot keep track of those accurately because they may take board the plane and go back to Mexico. So who knows that they are migrants in return? So that is tough. That's why that's a challenge there.
Thank you. That was very useful. Okay, we are open for questions.
You have a big geographical area for your consulate, and I'm just wondering, how do you do your outreach downstate?
I didn't speak to the biggest issue so much, but we have something called the mobile consulate. And it's not that we have a van and we travel, it's that we have a team, I guess they are 15 persons, that go 5 days a week and operate in different parts of the state or the jurisdiction. So we go a lot, for example, to Carbondale, which is an agricultural area, and we have seasonal workers there. During the summer, very, intentionally, we go there to that part, Arcola or, Urbana or Carbondale, to provide services there. So for 5 days, we partner with a local church or community center or university or college, and we set a mini consulate. So we do consular days, we do passports, we do information. We partner with some local organizations to provide health services, vaccinations, information on labor rights, and you name it. So we have innovated a little bit recently, and that's something that was born here in the Midwest, in Chicago, in the consulate in Chicago. We are partnering now with our consulates in Indianapolis and Kansas City to kind of duplicate our reach. So we do once a year, like a joint operation. So instead of perhaps of providing services to 100 persons, we provide them to 1,000. So that works really well. And the last mobile operation that we did in Carbondale, we coordinated with the Consulate of Guatemala. So in the same building, both consulates were providing information services for both communities, and that was also fantastic, a really success, and we're going to replicate that this year. So that's how we are traveling all the time. We're located in our headquarters in Ashland Avenue in Chicago, but we have a mobile unit that every week is in a different location.
Can you tell us if you have similar concepts happening in Mexico for the U.S. citizens who are living down there that are also happening?
I'm glad that you asked that, and you can say a lot about that. They have increased. They have opened new locations. They are, having new brand, beautiful embassy now, no headquarters for the embassy, but they have many consulates. I don't know how many of them. I lost track. Do you remember, Kathy, how many?
When I was there, it was 9, but I don't
No,
know
it's
what
more
it
than
is.
that,
Yeah,
like, yeah.
I know it's more, but I don't know the number.
And it's growing. And you know what is really interesting? That we partner to exchange good practices, because they found out with these deportations or repatriations that they will have a lot of kids, American citizens, born in the US, English-speaking kids, that were finding really difficult to navigate in the Mexican school system. So they are asking us, how do you do that? So it's really interesting, because we exchange, as I said, good practices, and they are, I'm not going to say copying, but they are finding their own way to reach out to their own diaspora, but taking a lot of information from what we do here. And that is really fascinating to see. So we have a really good, fluid partnership with the State Department. We have a group that meets at least once a year, the immigration group with our counterparts in the State Department and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Mexico. And they talk about this, and it's really nice. It's really interesting. So I guess now that we have all those digital nomads living in Mexico City and other parts of Mexico, Americans are requiring more consular services in Mexico. So let's see, how this evolves, and perhaps they are opening even more consulates. Yes.
They reached an agreement, or a close to an agreement, on the North American Free Trade Agreement with
Not yet. Do you remember that it was revised, as I said? If there's an agreement regarding the North American Free Trade Agreement. So we had NAFTA for many years, over 25 years, and then it was revisited, and somehow renegotiated. And then we agreed on the USMCA. And it was, because it was during the first Trump presidency, it was put into that agreement that it should be revised in 2026. So this is the year. And it was challenging, because when President Trump took office, he started talking about tariffs. I mean, even before that, when he was campaigning. So we knew that this was going to come, right? Our president has been the first woman president in Mexican history, by the way. And she has been really calmly addressing this situation. So far, they have met once in person for the World Cup event in Washington, D.C., but they talk a lot on the phone. They have talked like 16 times. And part of this dialogue has to do with this, and sometimes what Mexico may not be able to convey the message clearly. You have business people in this country that go and say, you know what, Mr. President, we're going to lose this or that if this continues, right? So there is like a coalition of like-minded interests that are behind the USMCA, that they want this agreement to move ahead. But we don't know. As I said, this is going to be revised this year. Our authorities are talking constantly. I guess that the Ministry of the Economy has already an apartment in Washington, D.C., and the other way around, his counterparts in Mexico City. As I said, we don't know if we're going to end up with two agreements, Mexico and the US, and the US and Canada. I don't think that's going to be positive, because we gained a lot of this partnership. The concept of a prosperous region, of a strong region that are competing with China and other parts of the world, still there. I mean, we still have the potential to be the most prosperous region in the world. So it would be a shame if we lose that. But, what is at stake is people that, use goods and services and that want to be able to still afford them, right? And not have shortages of, we saw what happened during the pandemic. So we don't want that. We want to guarantee that people are going to have access to all that, to all the good things that free trade provides.
Larry?
It's a little bit of a follow-up to this. Can you talk about how Prime Minister Carney's call for the middle countries to come together and form their own force is being received as something that Mexico might become part of? And you may have to repeat that.
You talk about Prime Minister Carney's speech in Davos. It was amazing. My major was international relations, and from that perspective, it was fascinating to see that. I guess he did a great job. He's followed a different path in which Canada is dealing with this new situation, and we respect that. We know that the path for Mexico is different because of that I put in that first slide. Canada doesn't have over 30 million people of Canadian origin living in the U.S. Maybe in this area, but because we have the border proximity, but not like Mexico. The economies are very much intertwined, but not in the same way and in the same volume as Mexico. So what is at stake is different, but we respect that. And what I love, as I said, is that we continue talking with Canada. And there was this incredibly successful delegation that visited Mexico and were received with open arms by the business community and the government of over 100 members of the business community to talk about, we need to move ahead. I mean, if this is going to happen, what are we going to do? So I guess the dialogue is still there. It's an option. We are not there yet. But let's see what happens. I mean, that's the president of Mexico has been very cautious and very much aware of what's going on. And when the time comes, she will make a decision, perhaps, to change people a little bit, right? Mm.
Could you speak for a moment about what, during the ice raids in Chicago in the fall, what the consulate's workload may have been and your role may have been during that period of time?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, I was asking to talk a little bit more about the immigration rates and what happened and how the consulate worked. It was the toughest time in my career. I've been for decades part of the Mexican Foreign Service, and I worked in many fields, but this was the most difficult thing that I've ever done. For many reasons. Politically, it was very challenging, as we were talking before with the students, and I was mentioning that we have a very fluid, open communication with the DHS offices here in Chicago, in the Chicago area. So I have a dialogue with the director of the field office of ICE and CBP, a good, respectful, professional relationship. And we need to protect that. So the consulate, that's something that we have in our DNA, diplomats. We don't have opinions about publicly. Of course, we have opinions about many things, but not publicly. about anything related to politics. So it was tough because this is a sanctuary state and a sanctuary city. And I was asked by journalists all the time. I was, invited to press conferences and events, and I had to be very careful. I could not be doing those things because I need to protect my relationship with ICE and CBP. Why? For all the things that I said, but that's part of our mandate, that's part of our legal framework, but mainly because that good relationship allowed us to be in Broadview 3 times a week in the toughest peaks of the operations, where nobody can put a foot in Broadview. Not the governor, not the mayor, not members of Congress, nobody. So we were the only entity that was able to go there under the umbrella of the Vienna Convention of Consular Relations to interview our citizens that were arrested. And that allowed us to document many things. People that were arrested violently, people that may have legal options, with no legal representation, we were able to provide that. People with illnesses. Maybe I'm diabetic and I was arrested and I need my medicine, right? So we were able to coordinate with the families. We had really challenging cases of people that may have had several strokes or were injured during the detention. So we not only activated that, so we had a team that everybody was all the consulate was activated in this emergency task force to go to Broadview. Now we're going to Indiana to the detention facility in Miami County, and go through a questionnaire and provide services, connect the detainees with their families in Mexico or here. Many people will be calling the consulate and say, I don't know what happened with my father. I don't know if he was arrested. Could you help me locate where he is? So we did a lot of that. So that's why for us it was very important to protect that relationship, because I was able to sit down with them, and still I do that, to go, I have all these cases where people were mistreated, or they had other legal resources or possibilities to present before a judge, and they were not giving the opportunity. So what are we going to do about that? So the dialogue is such that I was able to do that. I'm going to have to say something, and I'm perhaps not going to be very diplomatic when I say this, but the issue was for that during the operation that somebody from outside the Chicago area came to coordinate and head that operation. And that was a challenging part, right? That it was somebody else that weren't, he and his team and the people that he brought with him were not trained to do operations in an urban context. So we saw that, and that was awful. But we could still communicate with them, back channeling a lot. So we handled it, and we managed to interview how many people, Guillermo? 2,000. I mean, all last year it was over 2,000 persons that were detained by the ICE authorities. Just during Midway Blitz, it was over 1,000. So in the 12 months, out of those 12 months, in the space of Midway Blitz, it was half of the detainees. So it was very challenging. And the good part is when you saw that consular network all over the U.S., we communicate with our colleagues. So if somebody was detained here and we know that person had a health challenge, I was able to call or to communicate with my colleagues, if not in Texas or in Indiana, and say, this person is going to be taken to Indiana to be to board a plane and then go to Brownsville in Texas. So if we were not able to get him and provide him aid in Indiana, it was going to happen before he crossed the border to Matamoros. So that would happen in Brownsville. So we were able to do that connection. So we all were activated, and we all were providing help to our community.
Back to the economic piece, what is the impact? All of the corn around here, lots of it goes southbound trades to Mexico. What's the potential economic impact if NAFTA or something like that is not? How will it hurt our economy?
Oh my God! I'm sorry. I'm not gonna be able to give you a figure. It depends which sector, but it would be a disaster. Something needs to be in place for us to continue having the economies activated. Our communities are too interconnected right now. How many decades? 30 years of free trade between our countries. That cannot stop from one day to another. And everybody knows that, right? Now you have, the US has imposed tariffs to other countries like China. Where are you going to get your goods from? You need to have other sources to supply your markets, right? Your domestic markets. So it would be a disaster for consumers. I'm afraid you are seeing this already, and it is being reflected in everybody's pockets here. But that would be a disaster. So I know that the administration in Washington, D.C. knows that, of course, in Mexico as well and in Canada as well. So we need to seek for other options. Many state governments, including Texas, which is very much aligned with the President Trump's agenda, they know that it's going to be challenging. In other states like Iowa or other states that may not be quite aware about international relations or international trade, they are surprised when they learn where my constituents selling their corn or their soybeans. And the governors are always surprised when we give them the figures, right? So it's too much at stake to say, yeah, we're going to end this. Some sort of solution needs to be found. And I guess that the middle ground could be what I said, two different agreements. But we're not looking for that. We're pushing for continuity for the USMCA.
My question is related more to the media, addressing the media and the media coverage of some of the topics that Manning had talked about with the raids. How accurate, in your opinion, are those? And I wanted to maybe address that with the aspect of the media coverage.
They were very accurate. It depends which is your source, right? If you are into Breitbart News, they will say that the consulates are awful and Mexico is trying to invade the US to recover Texas. That's what they were saying, right? It sounds like a joke, but yeah, actually they are. There's a book out there talking about this. But we are learning a lot of things after what we went through. So there is a combination of information that we got from social media. All those people with their phones in their hands, documenting what was happening, allowed us to reach out to the families because we immediately activated our protocols in the consulate and look for the families, look in our databases and be able to connect with the families. If we saw somebody that was injured or something, right, we're able to do that. So now there is a huge component that is related to social media. And those recounts were accurate. They were pretty accurate. When we investigate, and there's still a lot of work to do, the killing of Silverio Villegas, who was the first person that was killed by ICE, the way that happened, right, even though there is a lot of gaps in the information that we have, because it was not video recorded in a phone, we have enough information to see that he was not attempting to run over the agent. That's a simple truth, right? So that helped a lot. So it's a combination of everything. And I guess the recount of what's happening depends on who is informing it or who are you listening to. Because immediately, for example, what happened in Minnesota, if you see or if you listen to what some authorities say, you will have one truth. But once you see the videos and compare it to other things that can show you some part of the reality, your perception of this, and not perception, what you see would be different, right? Actually not perceive, but actually see is different. So I appreciate, and I have to say that, the enormous sympathy that we got from other communities that may not have anything to do with Mexico. People in Evanston, after a horrible day where, the Border Patrol was there and they terrorized the community, and they decided, what do we do? I mean, what can we do? They decided to go to La Villita for dinner and support the community there. That's incredible touching, and we all saw that. Besides politics and besides when you see the human suffering, when you sympathize and empathize with that, I think that's amazing. And I guess that, of course, we're losing a lot. Families were separated, but at the same time, we're going to come out stronger, all of us, including people that may not have anything to do with Mexico, that witnessed that and wanted to help and decided to do something about it.
That's a beautiful thought to wrap up.
Gracias, thank you. I'm going to go back to myself.
Wait, don't.
Oh, I don't? Okay.
Ambassador, on behalf of the World Affairs Council of Central Illinois, all our guests and our members, we would like to thank you so very much for a very informative evening and to give you a small token of our appreciation. This is Leadership in Turbulent Times by Doris Kearns Goodwin.
Quite relevant
And
today.
it's courtesy of our partner organization, the Abraham Lincoln Foundation. So thank you so very much.
Let me put this here.
Okay.
Thank you.